And then we'll get started. So hello, everyone. I'm sure all of you know who I am by now, but just to give a little primer in case you don't, my name's Madison Plantier, and I work as a travel guide for Tansour Cultural Travel. As I said earlier, we specialize in a wide variety of group and bespoke tours that are designed to explore China off the beaten track. I first went to China when I was 16 years old for 10 days, then ended up falling in love with the country. So I lived there twice throughout my life, for 4 months when I was 18 years old, and then for about 2 years when I was 22 years old. I've also got a master's degree in Chinese study from the School of Oriental and African Studies. Oh my gosh, in London. So basically, my entire life is about China, and I'm obsessed with China. So today we're going to be giving a free presentation on the Miao ethnic minority. So why specifically are we looking at the Miao people? Well, way back when I did a presentation on ethnic minorities in China, of which there are currently 55 ethnic groups that are officially recognized by the Chinese government. But since each one of these ethnic groups has its own expansive history and fascinating culture, I thought it would be a shame to limit my discussion of ethnic minorities to just 1 hour for all of them. So I decided to create a series of presentations that go into sort of a deep dive on one ethnic group. So this is one of that series, specifically on the Miao people. So today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the Miao ethnic minority. But first of all, who are the Miao people and where do they currently live in China? Well, the Miao people rank as one of the most populous ethnic minority groups, with an estimated population of over 9 million Miao people currently living in China. They mainly live in the provinces of Guizhou and Yunnan, which are deep down in the sort of south west, although smaller communities of Miao people can be found in Hunan province and also in Sichuan province, which is a place where the really spicy food is. In Vietnam, you may know them as the Hmong people, although the Hmong represent only a small subset of the Miao ethnic minority in China, which we'll get into a little bit later in the presentation. After all, as I mentioned before, the Miao people are one of the most diverse ethnic groups in China. And this umbrella term contains within it a wide variety of vastly different subgroups. But how does the Miao story begin in the first place? Well, according to legend, the ancestors of the Miao people were part of what is known as the Zhou Li or 9 Li tribe, which was led by a mythical figure known as Chi You, and is also cited as where the ancestors of the Li ethnic minority come from. Around about 2500 BC, it was said that they were locked in an endless struggle with the Huaxia people, who were the ancestors of the Han ethnic majority. So most Chinese people that you meet today, for context, are from the Han ethnic group, and they represent about 95% or more of the people that live in China. Now, both of them vied for supremacy over the fertile river valleys in central China. As you can probably guess, the Miao people's ancestors didn't come out on top. After a catastrophic military defeat, they were eventually forced into the more hostile mountainous regions of southern China. Now, this may sound like a relatively reasonable account until you consider some of the details of this epic battle that took place. For example, the leader of the Miao people, Chi You, supposedly had magical powers. The leader of the Huaxia people summoned the aid of a demon, and the end of the battle was marked by a monsoon of blood rain. Not exactly something you're going to find in the average history book. So why am I even talking about it? Well, while this battle is undoubtedly the stuff of myth, there is evidence to suggest that there may be some credence to the legend after all. Many words in Chinese that are related to rice farming were borrowed from the Miao language, which indicates that the Miao people were likely to have been among the first rice farmers in China. Researchers have also established a genetic connection between the Miao people and the ancient Daxi people, who once populated central China over 6,000 years ago, and have long been credited as being the first rice cultivators in the country. Now, this evidence lines up really well with the quasi-historical accounts, outlining a narrative where the Miao people's ancestors did once inhabit the fertile river valleys of central China, but were eventually forced south by the ancestors of the Han people. In short, even with the Han people's 5,000-year-long history, the Miao people might just have them beat. Now, time has shown that this situation wasn't entirely detrimental to the Miao people either. The mountainous regions of southern China may not have been as habitable as central China, but they did provide protection, which allowed the Miao people to preserve their culture and customs for hundreds of years. Now, one of the other major knock-on effects of living in a mountainous province, however, is that many Miao communities were separated by impassable mountains and were isolated from one another, which led to them developing their own cultures, customs, and traditional styles of dress. Take, for example, the 3 photos that we have here. All of these people belong to the Miao ethnic minority, but they couldn't look any more different. So on the left, you have the 100 birds Miao. In the middle are the Qing or green Miao. Now, I've been over this word so many times. The word Qing in Chinese doesn't really have an exact translation. It's either bluish green or greenish blue. But here, for the sake of ease, I'm just referring to them as the green Miao, but more often the Qing Miao. And then on the right, you have the black Miao. You can really see how their traditional dress differs from one another. And just for frame of reference, these ones are the green Miao, the Qing Miao. So, oh, these ones here, sorry, are the, how am I getting these so confused? The red Miao. So the names of the latter 2 are based on the color of their dress, but the 100 birds Miao are actually so named. Oh, sorry, now I'm getting myself so confused. These are the Qing Miao, which are sometimes called the green Miao, but these are the green Miao. So they are 2 different groups. You've got the Qing Miao and then you've got the green Miao. So the names of the latter 2 here, so the Qing Miao and the black Miao, are based on the color of their dress. But the 100 birds Miao, which you have here, are actually so named because they have a preference for incorporating phoenixes into their embroidery, which is known as the Jiyu bird in the Miao language. Some outfits can be embroidered with up to 100 birds, hence the name. In fact, there is so much diversity even within these subgroups that there are actually 2 groups of the 100 birds Miao, known as the big 100 birds Miao and the small 100 birds Miao. Now on the left here, you have the small 100 birds Miao, and then on the right, you have the big 100 birds Miao. So again, their outfits look really, really different. So this is small 100 birds and this is big 100 birds. The differences in their outfits go back to an ancient legend that the Miao people have about their origins. So according to Miao legend, the origin of man began with a maple tree called the white maple. After being struck down, this mystical tree went through a transformation. Its roots turned into a fish, its trunk turned into a copper drum, its branches became a bird, and its core or spiritual essence manifested as a butterfly. Now, this butterfly fell in love with and became pregnant by the foams of the waves, very magical. Now, this big mother butterfly, who appears in a lot of Miao folklore, laid 12 eggs, and the Jiyu bird, the one born of the white maple, took a fondness for one egg in particular, so she decided to incubate that egg. So you've got this bird that came from the branch, taking care of an egg from the butterfly that also came from the core of this tree. The eggs took 12 days and 12 nights to hatch. Out of these eggs sprung a variety of creatures, including the thunder god, the dragon, the ox, the tiger, the elephant, the snake, and the centipede. Now, from that one egg that was incubated by the Jiyu bird, mankind was born. So Mother Butterfly and the Jiyu bird are both sort of responsible for the birth of mankind. Now, thereafter, the butterfly was known as Mother Butterfly or Butterfly Mother. So the big bird is the Mother Butterfly, which the big 100 birds Miao tend to replicate in their embroidery, while the small bird is the Jiyu bird, which dominates the embroidery of the small 100 birds Miao. Now, just for comparison, here are some of the men. So here you have small 100 birds, and here you have big 100 birds Miao, but the male outfits instead of just the female ones. Now, as you can see, even within 2 very closely related subgroups, the colors, motifs, and styles of dress are totally different, which has led to a lot of people questioning whether or not these subgroups should all be lumped together under the umbrella term of the Miao people, although we'll get into that later. In fact, there are considered to be, we have a video as well. So for now, let's watch our first video of the day to show off the gorgeous festival outfits of the big 100 birds Miao. So this footage was taken during the Guang festival by our local tour guide, Jackie. So our local tour guide is actually from the Miao ethnic minority as well. So he was able to attend the festival in spite of the pandemic because he lives in Guizhou province and because he is from the Miao ethnic minority. So for now, let's go over to this video, which is in a different place to where I normally keep my videos. And I need to actually, so I'm going to have to stop sharing for a brief second because I forgot to share properly. There we go. And this is the big 100 Miao, big 100 birds Miao during the Guang festival. for that is the Big 100 Birds Miao, and that was the Guang festival, which is one of the sort of biggest but also hardest to visit festivals. They hold it once every year, but the actual big one, the proper one, only takes place once every 13 years. So it's something I've always wanted to go to, and I've never gotten the timing right, which is always a shame. So in fact, to go back to this sort of diversity question, there are considered to be 163 distinct subgroups of the Miao people that all have their own unique styles of dress and their own dialects, although most dialects are mutually intelligible. For example, here you have the rooster Miao on the left, the xiao chou or little clown Miao in the middle, and the silver Miao on the right. So the rooster Miao, as you can probably guess, are named for their very unique styles of skirt, which have colourful tassels attached to them, imitating a rooster's feathers. Now, the xiao chou Miao, or the little clown Miao, on the other hand, are well known for their unusual hairstyle, where they actually wrap their hair around a bamboo frame to create this pointed effect. So this is real hair. Now, a similar hairstyle is worn by the antique Miao, who you can see here. So they again use sort of frames and bamboo to hold their hair together. But how are each of these subgroups named? Is there a rhyme and a reason to their unique monikers? So the names of subgroups are normally either derived from their style of dress, for one, such as the long skirt Miao and the short skirt Miao that you can see here. No prizes for guessing what they're named after. They can also be named after their living environment, such as the high mountain Miao, and in some cases, quite rarely, they're named after their dialect, such as the southeastern Qian-speaking Miao and the northwestern Qian-speaking Miao. So you've got either style of dress, location, living environment, or dialect is how they're named. There is one community of short skirt Miao, however, that is unlike any other, and has become notorious throughout China for its unique cultural customs. So these are the Miao men of Basha, who have earned a pretty formidable reputation as some of the finest shooters in China. This small village, located in the dense forests of Guizhou province, is the only place in China where the local people are still legally allowed to own guns, or rifles to be more specific. This is because rifle ownership is considered to be so integral to the local Miao people's culture that denying them the right to continue this custom would be too damaging to their cultural heritage. In fact, so the true story is when the Chinese government sent emissaries to confiscate the rifles, the Miao men simply refused to give them up. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not about to argue with a man holding a rifle. Now, according to local legend, the village was established over 2,000 years ago, when their ancestors emigrated from central China to the remote mountainous regions of Guizhou. These ancestors were frontline troops who used rifles to defend the village from outsiders and occasionally from wild animals such as bears. So this is why gun ownership has become such an important part of their culture. Thus, for the Miao men of Basha, rifle ownership has become a symbol of their masculinity. Most importantly of all, the best shooter in the village will be promoted to the lofty status of village leader. So improving your aim is a surefire path to political power. Now, their unique clothing dates back to the Ming Dynasty, around about 600 years ago, and is made by the women using hessian or gunny cloth. The cloth is dyed using a mixture made from a local plant and egg whites. It is the local plant that gives the clothes their distinct bluish-purple colour, while it is the egg whites that give the fabric its shiny appearance. So now I want to ask you all a question for anyone who's good at dyeing fabric or knows about dyeing fabric. What is the purpose or the function of dyeing the cloth with egg whites? What does it do to the fabric? I'm pretty sure other people have been to this presentation before. They might remember the answer to this. So why, David's already there, he's got it. It is waterproofing. So alongside making the fabric shiny, the egg whites make the fabric waterproof, which is their actual function. Now, there's also a deeper meaning behind the colour of their clothing as well. The folk religion in Basha is largely centered on tree worship. They only wear bluish-purple clothes as they want their clothing to resemble the colour of tree bark. Similarly, they wear their hair in these very distinct buns that you can see on their heads, which signifies the treetops. When a baby is born in Basha, a maple tree is planted in honour of their birth, and it is this tree that will eventually be cut down to make their coffin when they die. Now, the Miao men of Basha certainly have a fascinating culture, and their village is absolutely worth visiting, but they don't necessarily have the kind of eye-catching outfits that are commonly associated with the Miao people, particularly the Miao women. But how do these outfits get made? The answer, as I'm sure you've already guessed, is that they are meticulously and painstakingly crafted by hand. So for anyone here who is not familiar with the art of batik, it is a cloth dyeing process whereby a knife that has been dipped into hot wax is used to draw a pattern onto a piece of cloth. The cloth is then boiled in dye, which melts the wax. Once the wax is melted off, the cloth is removed from the boiling dye. The rest of the cloth will be coloured by the dye, but the pattern that was under the wax will have remained the original colour of the cloth. Now, for this reason, most batik work that can be found in China, particularly among China's ethnic minorities, is blue with a white motif on it. In particular, some people here may be familiar with the Bai ethnic minority, also known as the white, Bai meaning white, ethnic minority, who are also very, very famous for their beautiful batik work. So here you have someone drawing the pattern on with the wax. Then you have it being submerged in the dye. And then afterwards, the final product. So isn't that incredible? Like, look at how beautiful and like detailed that is. That's been drawn on, if you go back to the first one, that's been drawn on by hand using wax. Imagine how hard that is. And then imagine how difficult it is to time this exactly right, to know when the wax is melted, and to get something like this, something as sort of detailed as this, is so cool. So the batik technique that is used by the Miao people dates back over 1,000 years ago. Although the method itself may seem simple, the patterns that are produced on the cloth can be wonderfully elaborate. Unlike the Bai ethnic minority, who incorporate their batik work into their traditional dress, most batik work among Miao communities is for decorative pieces only. So one notable exception, are the white collar Miao, who you can see pictured here, and who do use a lot of batik work to decorate their traditional dress, which you can clearly see. It's just so beautiful. I really love batik work. Since subgroups can have endless diversity even within themselves, however, even this is not a hard and fast rule. So here again, you have two different communities of white collar Miao. On the top, you have a community of white collar Miao who prefer to wear blue batik work with a red sash sort of in the middle, while the community of white collar Miao in the photo below prefer to wear red clothing that has been embroidered with blue patterns. So again, even within the same subgroup, you still get this kind of like diversity within it. In terms of their festival outfits, the only commonality is, of course, the white collar, which you can see just here and for which they are named. In fact, when it comes to the Miao traditional dress, it really is their spectacular skill at embroidery and their fine silver jewelry that takes center stage. So the Miao women's skill at embroidery is renowned throughout China, and each family will tend to embroider all of their own clothes, particularly their festival clothes. The main colors used in Miao embroidery are red and green, although colors, of course, vary between different subgroups of Miao people. Now, as I mentioned before, most subgroups of Miao people are actually identified by the main colours or embroidered motifs of their festival dress, such as the black Miao, the red Miao, and the 100 birds Miao. Embroidery plays a really key role in Miao traditional dress, no matter what subgroup they belong to. Now, one unique feature of Miao style embroidery is that the patterns will be based partly on the natural world, but also, and I really love this idea, partly on the artist's imagination. This is why dragons and phoenixes feature in many designs, in spite of the fact that they are mythical creatures. It is also why certain animals, such as fish and birds, and also certain plants, will look different compared to how they appear in real life. Miao embroidery is famed for its delicacy, its imaginative designs, and its use of vibrant colour. Now, before we move on to talking about arguably the most famous aspect of the Miao traditional dress, I'd like to take a moment just to point out that these elaborate outfits are not for daily use. The beautifully embroidered clothes that I've shown you thus far are for special occasions and festivals only. So, for example, this isn't the type of thing that you'd sort of stroll down to the pub in. This is something that's sort of very special. It will be passed down through generations and is hugely expensive. I mean, obviously all handcrafted, but worth a ton, obviously from a sentimental value and from a financial perspective. So on a day-to-day basis, this is the type of clothing that most Miao people will wear. It's still undoubtedly really lovely and relatively elaborate. I wish I dressed this well during the day, but I don't. You can see me right now in a black hoodie. But it's far more functional and less decorative than their festival dress. Now, the silver jewelry of the Miao people is certainly the most eye-catching and spectacular aspect of their traditional dress. The reason why Miao people gravitate towards silver is mainly because they view it as a symbol of wealth. So owning and wearing a certain amount of silver during festival occasions is a way to telegraph your wealth and status to other members of your community. In fact, in some cases, when communities of Miao people from different villages gather together for festivals, it also serves as an indication to people from other villages of how wealthy and powerful your village is. And this is really common. So in particular, subgroups that live near each other tend to host festivals for each other. So those photos I showed you at the beginning, the black Miao are actually at a festival that's being hosted by the red Miao. And it's a really good way, essentially, then to show off how sort of powerful and wealthy your community is by showing up in these elaborate outfits with lots and lots of silver. They also, however, believe that silver symbolizes light and good health. So wearing silver will ward off evil spirits, stave off natural disasters, and also bring the wearer good fortune. So if you're a fan of silver, that might be something worth mentioning to your friends and family since we're running up to Christmas. All of the silver jewelry that a Miao woman wears will have been handcrafted by a Miao silversmith, who in this case, kind of breaking from tradition, is typically male and will have been honing his craft for decades. In many ways, it is a legacy item, as it will be passed down from mother to daughter throughout every generation of the family. But you're probably all wondering, how do they keep their silver looking so shiny? And where does it even come from? Now, the silver itself is harvested from silver mines, which are actually abundant throughout the mountainous regions of Guizhou province. So hence why silver tends to be used more, partly because it's a symbol of wealth and they believe it brings good fortune and health, but also partly because it is abundantly available. Now, normally their silver is blended with copper, which is more resilient and cheaper. This type of blend, however, is only used for the bracelets and the smaller accessories to make them a bit more durable. The headdress and necklaces, which are the biggest pieces, are made of pure silver. They actually use toothpaste to wash it regularly, but they have a special traditional method that they use to do a deep clean of the silver, so to speak, which is when it looks at its shiniest. But it's this sort of secret recipe, so it's not something that we're sort of privy to. And they're not willing to share it with outsiders either, because each different community will have a different way of doing it, and they don't want that information to get out to other Miao communities as well. Now, before I talk a bit more about the silver jewelry itself, let's play another guessing game. So again, please write in the chat. When it comes to the silver jewelry that the Miao women wear during festivals, how much do you think it weighs? I'm going to give you some context. Do you think it weighs the same as a bag of sugar, a small dog, or a car tire? So you've got three choices: a bag of sugar, a small dog, or a car tire. And again, anyone who's been to this before, they know immediately what it is. And obviously people are going to go for the heaviest one, which is good. You all know my trick. So for anyone who saw through the trick and picked the heaviest one, which I think everyone has. Yes, you all have. Good. You know my tricks. It is, in fact, a car tire. You're absolutely right. So it's not uncommon during festivals for a woman's jewelry to exceed 15 kilograms or just over 33 pounds in weight. So to put that into perspective, that's about the equivalent weight of a 17-inch car tire, which they carry on their bodies for an entire day, or usually even longer, since these are multi-day events. Now, for anyone who's curious, by the way, these close-ups are of the silver jewelry of the big 100 birds Miao. So remember those ones I mentioned earlier, who in the previous photos were not in their traditional dress. This is what they look like when they're in their traditional dress, their festival dress. As you can see here, the silver jewelry of the Miao people can vary widely, even among the same subgroup, but there are some common styles. A typical festival outfit worn by a Miao woman will include a hat or a crown, horns. Oh, sorry. This is not the 100 birds Miao. This is the 100 birds Miao. And then this is the one I want to be on to show the different bits. So a typical festival outfit worn by a Miao woman will include a hat or a crown that you can see here. So this is a hat here, hat and hat. Also sometimes referred to as a crown. Usually it has horns. So these ones here don't have horns. This one does. So these are the horns in this case. Some of them do actually look like horns coming out the back. You also have a comb. You can't see that in any of the photos because it holds the headpiece in. So here and behind her head here, she'll have a comb, which is what's holding the headpiece in. They also, of course, have earrings or ear pendants that you can see demonstrated really beautifully. Well, this is part of the headdress, but you can just about make out earrings here, not so much on this one. A neckband, a necklace, a collar, bracelets, and rings, which are all made from silver. The decorations are typically, let's see if we've got better photos here. So you can see the bracelets here. This is the comb at the back here. And then you can see the necklace here as well. So the decorations are typically in 4 styles. You have symmetrical style, balanced style, connected style, and radiating style. They usually feature patterns involving dragons, phoenixes, flowers, and birds. Burns. I'm not on form today. The most striking of these adornments is the silver hat or the crown, as you can see here. This is sort of the biggest piece, the most obvious. Common motifs for the silver hats are known as magpie stepping on a plum, a golden pheasant calling out, a peacock spreading its tail, and a male and female phoenix perched together, so all based around the shape. These motifs can vary in appearance from region to region as well. So, for example, the phoenix hat of the Huangping region features hundreds of silver flowers, but it specifically has to have 4 birds on it and 1 phoenix. The silver pieces at the back of this hat are meant to imitate the phoenix's tail feathers. Now, in some Miao villages, the silver horns are the most important adornment. They vary in thickness and are meant to look like the horns of a bull, as you can probably guess. The horns are each typically 50 to 70 centimeters long. They normally have patterns hammered into them, such as phoenixes or dragons holding pearls, and are sometimes decorated with feathers or tassels. So you can see here, these ones aren't sort of long, but you can see just how detailed they are in the way they've been sort of hammered out. Now, alongside the headdress, the collar is another indispensable silver adornment for the Miao women, and it's sometimes called a moon plate because it is shaped like a crescent moon. So here you have them here, but more importantly, more obviously, you can see this one here. So this is a moon plate, and this is a moon plate as well. It's probably the second most important part of the dress, and most Miao people have some form of moon plate. Some subgroups of the Miao, however, choose not to wear these kind of elaborate silver headdresses. Most famous of these subgroups is the Longhorn Miao, who take a very novel approach to headwear. So here they are. Much like the horns worn in the silver dresses of other Miao subgroups, the horns, so to speak, of the Longhorn Miao are designed to imitate those of a water buffalo. Each headdress worn by the Longhorn Miao consists of a wooden horn, which you can't see here. So underneath this, there's this big piece of wood. And then that has a comb in it that sits into the back, and that embeds the hairpiece. So it holds everything together and holds it into the back of your head. As I said, you can't see the comb here because it's actually inside the headpiece. And it's what's giving it this distinctive kind of shape. Headpiece, of course, made from hair. Is it all real? And it is. So these hair pieces are made from real human hair, but not just any human hair. Over the course of their lives, women from the Longhorn Miao will collect any hair strands that either fall on the floor or gather in their comb when they brush their hair, which they eventually pass on to their daughter or daughters. Each woman's headdress is therefore made from the hair of at least their mother, but usually also their grandmother. Thread is used to hold the hair together, and each hairpiece can weigh upwards of 3 kilograms, or about 7 pounds. Now, here as well, you can see the horn, the piece of wood, the headpiece that holds it together. So you've got the hair here, you've got the headpiece, and then what they do is they take the hair, wrap it around, and then bind it using this sort of white gauze. By now, I'm sure you're all starting to notice how much diversity there is within the Miao ethnic minority. In fact, there are 2 subgroups within the Miao ethnic minority that both feel as though they've been incorrectly categorized and are thus fighting for their autonomy. So I want to spare a couple of moments now to talk about them. So the first and lesser known of these 2 subgroups are referred to as the Xijia people. According to a rather unusual tradition, the Xijia people will only ever use 1 bucket to carry water, which is unsurprisingly again related to a delightful local legend. One of my favorite legends, actually, because I just think it's so kind of silly. Not silly, but clever. During the Ming Dynasty, so around about 1368 to 1644, there was supposedly a local Xijia man named Luo Saijun, whose talents meant that he was promoted to work for the imperial palace as a minister. He was adept at his duties and well liked by the royal family, which instantly made him a target of envy among the other officials. And bear in mind, it was highly unusual for people outside of the Han ethnic majority to become officials. So not only was it strange for him to be an official, it was very strange for him to hold this kind of position of high power. Now, one day, a foreign envoy arrived at the palace with a lavish gift as a tribute to the emperor, a pair of beautiful golden buckets. Before the emperor had a chance to see the gift, however, a particularly jealous official destroyed one of them and blamed it on Luo Saijun. The emperor was furious when he found out and demanded an explanation from Luo. In a testament to his wit, Luo replied that the 2 buckets were actually a dark omen from the envoy, expressing the foreign desire that China would separate into 2 halves. Luo thus broke one of the buckets to secure the unity of the country. since the phrase yitong, or one bucket, is actually a homonym for the word yitong in Chinese, meaning unity. The emperor was understandably impressed by Luo's very quick answer, and he escaped punishment. So since then, the Xijia people have only ever used one bucket to carry their water, in honor of Luo Saijun. Now, the Xijia people can only be found in what's known as the Xijia Shilong village, and a lot of their cultural customs have kind of been lost to time. But the other subgroup I want to talk about today are far more prevalent, and they've preserved their culture sort of throughout the generations. They're also perhaps a little bit more fearsome as well, which may tie into why they've been able to keep their culture alive for a bit longer. So someone else mentioned in the chat earlier, one of my earlier photos was also of these people. They're called the Gejia people, who are known throughout China for their unusual traditional dress and their supposed passion for warfare. While they are officially classed as a subgroup of the Miao ethnic minority, they are in fact very culturally distinct and have been campaigning for their autonomy ever since they were misclassified in 1954. So Gejia women in particular are known for their skill at embroidery and batik, which has allowed them to decorate their own traditional clothes for thousands of years. Their traditional dress is highly complex and symbolic. So in order to really illuminate the meaning behind their traditional dress, I'm going to have to tell you another legendary origin story. And this might be one that people are familiar with. It's a very famous sort of Chinese story. According to legend, the Gejia people are reputed to be the ancestors of a mythical hero known as Hou Yi. In ancient times, it was believed that there were actually 10 suns that crossed the sky one by one. One day, however, these suns all inexplicably came out at the same time and began to scorch the earth. Hou Yi was a skilled archer, and so he was tasked by King Yao to shoot down 9 of the 10 suns, leaving just one, the one we have now, to illuminate the earth. For this reason, the Gejia people are said to have this passion for warfare, and their elegant traditional dress reflects this. Now, their headdress, which you can see kind of close up here, is designed to represent the sun. So you have this kind of circular shape with this red band around it. And it has a wooden or silver stick penetrating it that symbolizes an arrow in reference to the legend of Hou Yi. They traditionally cover their shoulders and back with these kind of heavy shawls that you can see just here, which is said to symbolize a shield. And they similarly cover their legs in thick knee-high socks, which symbolize leg guards. So you've got here the headdress, which is meant to symbolize the sun being pierced by an arrow, and then this thick black shawl, which is meant to be like a shield, and these sort of thick leg guards, or thick knee-high socks, which are meant to represent leg guards. As I mentioned earlier, however, many of these extravagant outfits are reserved solely for festival occasions. While many subgroups of the Miao follow their own unique festival calendar, there are a number of festivals that are shared by different subgroups and are observed by all members of the Miao ethnic group. So let's start with the largest and most extravagant festival in the Miao calendar, known as the Miao New Year. For starters, as you've probably already guessed, the Miao people do not follow our calendar, the Gregorian calendar, but they also don't follow the Chinese lunar calendar, which means that they celebrate New Year at a completely different time to pretty much everyone. In fact, there's not even an official date for their New Year's Day because it changes every year, and it changes according to their calendar every year as well, so it's not just for us. Normally, the date is decided upon by a group of elder shaman, typically 2 months prior to when the festivities begin, although it always takes place sometime between September and October according to their lunar calendar, which roughly equates to September and October in our calendar, rather conveniently. In fact, there isn't even a consensus among Miao communities about when it should be celebrated. For example, the Miao people living in southeastern Guizhou province hold their New Year festival on the Rabbit Day, or the Ox Day of their lunar calendar. But other Miao communities in Guizhou province don't follow this tradition. What they do have in common, however, is how they celebrate the New Year. So we have some sort of cohesion. During the New Year festival, women will wear traditional clothes and there will be large parades. In particular, music is the order of the day, as many Miao communities will gather together to sing, dance, and play a variety of instruments. In particular, the Miao people have a preference and a real fondness for a type of instrument known as a Lusheng, which you can see just pictured here. In fact, they have an entire festival about it, which I'll talk about in a moment. They have this sort of entire festival dedicated to it. Now here you can see some of the fearsome men of Basha, poised with their Lusheng and ready to play. But I'm sure most of you here are all wondering what exactly is a Lusheng. A lusheng is a type of wind instrument made of multiple bamboo pipes. So you can see here all the different bamboo pipes, some of them bigger and some of them smaller. Each of them are fitted with a free reed, and they are all in turn fitted into a larger hardwood pipe. Normally, there are 5 or 6 bamboo pipes that are each of a different pitch. Now, air is blown into the hardwood pipe to create sound. They vary in size from small handheld ones to ones that are several meters in length. Now, as you can see here, you've got these smaller ones at the front, and you see it gets blown into here, and you have these much larger ones at the back as well. Now, alongside the Miao New Year, the Lusheng Festival is considered to be the most significant of all the Miao festivals, and is celebrated widely throughout the provinces of Guizhou, Yunnan, and Sichuan. It takes place from the 16th to the 20th day of January, according to the Chinese lunar calendar. During the Lusheng festival, Miao people from surrounding villages will all come together in traditional dress, and the men will all bring their Lusheng. The men will play the Lusheng while the women dance. So there is this sort of gender divide as well. They believe that this ceremony will bring a good harvest and good health to the people in the coming year. However, the festival is not simply about playing the Lusheng, and also features other activities that are typical of the Miao, such as singing, bullfighting, and horse racing. While the Lusheng festival represents a time for communities to come together, there is another festival that serves a much greater social purpose. And that's the Sisters' Meal Festival, which always looks really good as well because the food looks really good. I don't know why, but the coloured rice always looks really appetizing. Now, the Sisters' Meal Festival is considered to be one of the oldest types of what are known as Valentine's Day celebrations in the world. It is a particularly popular festival in the counties of Taijiang and Jianhe, within the provinces of Guizhou. The festival itself is celebrated from the 16th to the 18th of March every year, again according to the Chinese lunar calendar, and is so named for what is known as the Sisters' Meal or Sisters' Rice, which forms a focal component of the festivities, in which you can see just here this massive sort of, not even a bowl, just massive thing of it. Before the festival, the Miao women will go into the mountains together in order to gather wildflowers and leaves, which are used to make a variety of edible dyes. This dye is then used to colour rice, which is known then as Sisters' Rice. When the festival itself begins, the women will deck themselves out in their finest silver jewellery and meet by the banks of a river in order to make this special meal. They dye the rice very specific colours, so you have blue, pink, and yellow, but leave one batch of rice undyed so that it's white. So you can see here just the little bits of white rice. The blue rice signifies spring, the pink rice is for summer, yellow rice is for autumn, and white rice represents winter. Now, I know you can see here there's some green rice. It's meant to be blue. So you've got blue here, pink, yellow, and then winter, and then white rice. You've got a lot of autumn, so a lot of yellow rice in this photo. Once the rice has been prepared, the young men will arrive and seek out the woman that they love so that they can serenade them. The woman must respond to his overtures by giving the man a cup of rice wine and the sister's rice, which is wrapped in a handkerchief covered in symbols. Now, this is the most important part, so listen up, men who want to sort of court Miao women. If the rice is offered with a pair of red chopsticks, it means the woman returns the man's affection, so that's a good sign. If only one chopstick is offered, that's a polite refusal. If a piece of garlic or a red chili is placed on the rice, this indicates a flat refusal, as you can probably guess. Pine needles scattered on the rice means the man should start presenting silks and colourful cloths to the woman before she will even consider his proposal, which I love. That would be me. I'd be the one trying to get gifts out of people. Now, this festival is particularly important in terms of courtship, as it is one of the few occasions where young men and women unmarried from other Miao villages are able to mingle with each other freely. Now, of course, saving the best for last, and the one I mentioned earlier, the final festival I want to talk about today is known as the Guang Festival, this sort of epic every 13 years festival. So the Guang Festival has been shrouded in mystery for hundreds of years. There is a smaller version of the festival known as the Small Guang Festival, which is held every year and lasts for only 4 days, but the real Guang Festival only takes place once every 13 years. As you can imagine, it's such a major event that planning for the festivities usually begins 2 years before the festival is due to start, and the festival itself can last upwards of 15 days. A different Miao village will host the main festival each time on a rotation, and it historically served a really important role in bringing together communities of kindred clans of Miao people. The name Guzang derives from the two words Gu and Zang, which mean drum and to bury, respectively. Thus, guzang put together means to bury the drum, as drums are a particularly significant part of this festival. Ancient Miao songs indicate that the Guzang festival was celebrated by early Miao clans during the Xia dynasty, which would make this festival thousands of years old. The festival is particularly important to the Miao because it focuses on commemorating their ancestors, with a particular reference to their shared ancestors and origin story. So much of this festival is about bringing these different communities together and bringing cohesion to these different sort of groups of people that otherwise wouldn't really see each other throughout the year. As you can imagine, the Guzang festival has a lot of moving parts, so I'm not going to go into too much depth about the festivities here. I'll just speak briefly about how the festival received its unusual name and what typically takes place during the festival itself. So 2 different kinds of drums will be used during the festival. You've got the double drum and the single drum. The double drum is made up of 2 single drums and is pretty big, averaging 1.7 meters in length and 30 centimeters in diameter. Before the festival, the double drums are usually kept in the house of a couple who is married but childless. The Miao people believe that the presence of the double drum will help them conceive a child. The single drum is substantially smaller than the double drum, and a new one has to be made for each festival. When the festival ends, this single drum will be placed in a cave, where it will be left to decay. Now, this burying, quote unquote, of the drum is where the festival derives its name, so that comes from this single drum. In August, before the next Guzang festival, the hosting village will retrieve this old single drum as part of a ceremony known as Xinggu, or awakening the drum. This takes place a year before the festivities begin, and after that, the hosting village can begin making their new single drum. So before they can start making it, they have to go and awake the old drum. The drums are crafted using maple wood, with cowhide covering both ends of each drum. Since the maple tree is revered by the Miao people as the origins of life, the Miao believe that the souls of their ancestors actually live inside of these huge drums. They beat the drums loudly under maple trees in order to wake up their ancestors, who they believe actually do take part in the festival. Now, I'll just speak about one of the ceremony that takes place during the festival, mainly because I find it so unique and fascinating. So on the second day of the festival, the leader of the festival will travel into the mountains with a shaman in search of the soul of a dragon, which is a symbol of good luck. And this is where it starts to get a bit weird. The shaman will carry around a male duck, so he goes around the entire mountain holding a male duck, and guide the soul of the dragon into the duck in a ceremony known as jiaolong, or inviting the dragon. So that's how they get the dragon back to the village, is they put it inside of a duck. As you can see from the photos, the Lusheng and folk dancing forms a really focal part of the festivities during both the big and small Guzang festivals. For now, however, let's take a moment to watch some footage of these incredible festivals. So rather than just watching one, we did watch the clip I showed earlier was of the 100 Birds Miao during their Guzang festival, the small one. But this is actually a montage of footage that was taken by our local tour guide, Jackie, and features images from the small Guzang festival, the Lusheng festival, the Miao New Year, and another festival known as the Eat New Festival. So I thought it was really good to kind of end on this sort of smattering of different festivals. Oh, and I'll just pop the quality up as well. And hopefully it'll work. Yes, so this is sort of a montage of different festivals, most of which we've talked about today, but the Eat New Festival is the only one that I didn't sort of touch upon.
Take a seat.
Not that. That's not a festival. And if you want to watch any more of those, we've got a lot of festival content that's sort of on our YouTube channel, so I definitely recommend that. So to finish up for today, I just want to spare a few moments to talk about a few of the places where the Miao people live. So if you do want to engage in sort of these local cultures and visit some Miao people, this is kind of where you want to go. So these are the type of places where the Miao people typically live to this day. These images were taken of Miao ethnic minority. Oh no, this is Guizhou province. And from the outset, this one here, you can see some pretty distinctive features of. So this is kind of this is Guizhou province. This is the type of place where Miao people typically live. Living in this mountainous terrain has meant that several ethnic minority communities have been reasonably isolated from the rest of China, which is what has allowed them to preserve their culture for so many years. In order to successfully inhabit such an uneven and somewhat hostile landscape, however, these ethnic minorities have, of course, had to adapt their lifestyles. Now, the first thing you'll notice from this particular photo is that the region is full of terraced fields, because this was one of the only effective methods for farming crops on the hillsides and mountainsides. Now, the other and arguably more unusual adaptation comes in the form of their style of architecture. So you can just see it in the distance here, but for a close-up, this is a much better photo. Now, these strange buildings are known as Diaojiao, which literally translates to mean hanging feet building. They are so named because the buildings look as though they are literally hanging either over the water in the case of some sort of villages that have rivers running through them, or in this case, they look like they're hanging off of the mountainside. Although they may differ in style, Miao, Dong, and Buye people all live in these specialized types of dwellings. In fact, a lot of different ethnic minority groups do. The Dai people, for example, make them out of bamboo, which looks really beautiful. The main characteristics of the Diaojiao Lo is that it's supported by stilts or wooden columns. They're typically around 2 to 3 stories in height. Now, the upper floors are held up by thick wooden stilts, which gives the building this kind of unsteady appearance. Now, these stilts are further reinforced by stone blocks at their base, meaning Diaojiao Lo are actually really stable. Now, the ground floor is primarily made up of supporting columns and often doesn't have walls. So this one does, that you can see here, but I'm wondering if, do I have other photos that show, oh, these all have walls. You can see here, so that one doesn't have any walls at all. But normally this sort of area at the bottom wouldn't have any walls in it, trust me. So this floor tends to be used as a kind of stable for livestock or as a storage space for firewood and farming equipment. It's the second and third floors that are used as living spaces, although occasionally the top floor will be used as an extra storage space and also to dry things out. The top 2 floors will have verandas as well, or balconies, which are used to dry clothes. So you can see sort of just here, you've got some clothes drying there. And then I wonder if you can see any from the previous photo. No, but you can see sort of the balconies here and some of the balconies here. No clothes drying, no, unfortunately. So why are the buildings literally suspended on stilts? So the key to their popularity is that in ancient times, these stilted buildings would provide protection from wild animals. And nowadays, they continue to provide protection from venomous snakes and insects that are still prolific throughout southern China. Don't be worried, though. You don't come across them as often as you would think. The cool breeze blowing through the windows of the upper levels acts like a kind of natural air conditioner, meaning these buildings also help prevent humidity-related diseases that are, again, very common in southern China. In the south of China, the level of humidity on the ground during summer is almost unbearable. I can attest to this because I lived in Hunan province, which is in sort of south central China. It is horrendously humid. Still not as bad as Beijing, though. Beijing during the summer is one of the worst. But it's also potentially, therefore, very dangerous. So elevated living spaces are particularly important. These stilted houses are also designed to survive most natural disasters. So they're obviously really good against floods, as you can imagine, particularly since they don't inhabit that bottom level, but they're also surprisingly good against earthquakes. Now, before we move on to sort of my closing thoughts for today, let's just take a moment to transport ourselves to the countryside of Guizhou province and take a virtual journey through some of these Miao villages in our final video of the day, which I'll pull up now. So this is the kind of places where they live. And again, I'll crank up the quality. So sort of very, very beautiful places indeed. I really love the way some of the villages look, and I love Diaojiaolou. But to finish up for today, I want to pick up on a thread that I often pick up on throughout any of my presentations on ethnic minority groups in China, which is about meaningful engagement. So if you want to travel to these places. So how can you meaningfully engage with communities of Miao people on your trip to China? Now, as I've mentioned before, there are Miao villages in China that have been specifically geared up for tourism, most notable of which is the village of Xijiang. Although they provide easy access to Miao culture and have greater amenities than the average Miao village, the result is usually an experience that is inauthentic and heavily commercialized, and often damaging to the local community. The best way to experience real ethnic minority culture is to visit the more remote villages that haven't been developed for tourism and connect with the local communities there. For example, you could visit the Miao village of Yangkai, which is home to just 15 families. Arranging a homestay with a local family is a guaranteed way to experience authentic local life and to garner an unparalleled insight into the culture of certain ethnic minority peoples, and particularly the different subgroups as well. When it comes to directly engaging with the culture, attending folk dance and singing performances may seem like an obvious choice, and of course you should do that, I would urge you to, but it's also equally important to try and engage with aspects of the culture that may not seem as exciting or as conventional. For example, you could learn how to make paper the traditional way using maple tree bark, which is a technique that has been passed down in the Miao village of Shiqiao for generations. In this way, all aspects of the culture can be preserved, as opposed to just the marketable ones. Now, if you have a lot of flexibility in regards to when you can travel, you can also plan your trip around the festival calendar, and perhaps you could even take part in the elusive Big Guzang Festival. So to finish up with, I'd just like to say thank you so much to everyone for joining us, and I hope you've all enjoyed it. Please do feel free to get in touch with us via our email here, or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But in the meantime, I'm going to let people unmute. I think we've gone horribly over time. So everyone is allowed to unmute now if you have any questions, and I'm going to jump into the chat now to quickly answer some of these questions. I'm going to go